I've been promoting Verve on this channel for several years, but I want to remind everybody that before Verve, the anime hub of the internet was Crunchyroll, the ever-improving streaming service that offers such titles as Black Clover, Re:Zero, Haikyuu, Boruto, and more. Literally thousands of hours of anime are on Crunchyroll, and it works on all your devices. Click the link in the description to try it for free today. Final Fantasy VII Remake. Very, very interesting choices were made with this game that differ from the original. Before we go any further, this video is gonna contain spoilers for Final Fantasy VII Remake. If you have not beaten this game, this is not the video for you. Go pick up the game, go beat it, and then when you do that, come back and we'll talk about it, because we're gonna go into the ending of this game and how it will tie into the future. Okay, and I really want everybody to not just look it up on the internet. I know not everybody can afford the game. I get it, because we're in hard times right now, but trust me, it's worth doing, because if you are a fan of Final Fantasy VII, you will be shocked as to what happened. So that's it. There's your warning. Let's get into it. Let's talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2. Now, as of right now, there is no announcement for this coming. We've heard that it's probably going to come in about 3 or 4 years, maybe sooner, but probably 3 or 4 years on the next-gen consoles, the PS5, whichever. Probably there'll be a PS4 version as well. But I want to talk about where we think the story is going to go and how we think Final Fantasy VII Part 2, Remake Part 2, is going to go, because we're going in a totally different direction. We've talked about it before. What happens with Sephiroth and Cloud in this game and Zack is not what happened in the original timeline. So this game's kind of like a soft reboot / sequel. That's pretty much what this is. So we're going to talk about it here. Joining me on this video, a guy who I've done many, many recordings with on Geekdom 101. He is a hardcore Dragon Ball fan, but also he's a very hardcore fan of Final Fantasy VII, his favorite game of all time. Please welcome Super Jayan to World of Geekdom. Yo!
Thank you for having me. First time I've been on World of Geekdom, I think. I don't think I've been on this channel before. I've only been on...
No, you haven't.
Geekdom 101.
Nope.
So...
Yeah, and you were one of the first guys I ever recorded with, and back then we talked about Final Fantasy VII, and we never thought this game would actually happen. Like, I think we talked about, they're never going to remake it, they'll just remaster it, and then we have a remake, and then the story went in a totally different direction because of the Whispers, and now the Whispers are gone, so the timeline is going to change. And I don't know about you, Jay, but I'm actually really excited, because even though I love the story of Final Fantasy VII, the original PS1 version, and I also feel like they will keep aspects of the story, I think there will be some changes going forward with Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2. So, the first thing I want to kind of talk about is the gameplay. I don't think, Jay, that Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 is going to be like PS1. I don't think it's going to be open world. I think that there may be a time skip. It's going to be more like chapters, like how this game was. Chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I think we are going to go to Nibelheim, and we are going to probably fight the Midgar Zalem and things of that nature. Obviously, the Gold Saucer. I think all that will stay in the game, but I don't think we're going to be on the overworld. I think we'll just go there. Like, do you kind of see it being that way, or do you think they might actually put an overworld in this game? Because I think if they do, it'll be way too big.
I can understand why they would do that, but I think if they truly want to please the fans, they will do open world in Part 2. The reason I say that is a lot of Final Fantasy games give you the slow burn effect, especially the more recent ones. If you look at games like Final Fantasy 15 or Final Fantasy 13, the intro to the game and the opening part of the game generally takes a long time to get through. Final Fantasy 13 was a perfect example of that. Not my favorite game, but the first, you could argue 14 to 18 hours of the game is really linear and confined. And you could say that Final Fantasy VII, for the most part, beautiful, stunning backdrops, the environments look great, but it is a linear experience.
That's a good point.
Yeah, Final Fantasy 13, after the linear portion, 14 to 18 hours in, it opens up into an open world game, basically. And I think Final Fantasy VII Remake will do that, based on the fact that they really want to please the fans, and that, mixed feelings about the Whispers for some people, but I can guarantee you the people who complained about the ending to the remake will still come back for Part 2, because why wouldn't you? It's like, you want to see what happens now, because it might change.
No, I think it will.
Yeah.
I feel like at the end of 7, when Aerith is like looking out and like saying we have to stop Sephiroth, I think that's kind of her saying we have to actually beat him for real this time. Like in Advent Children, he has that thing where his spirit will always live on. But I think she's trying to figure out a way to actually finish him off this time.
Cloud says, "Stay in my memories where you belong," and he goes, "I will never be a memory." I think it's interesting to note for those of you that didn't pick this up that it's definitely hinted at that the events of the original Final Fantasy VII and Advent Children may have even already taken place. So,
right, it's like a different timeline.
Yeah, this is like Zack being alive, walking past Cloud and Aeris, and I will call her Aeris because Aerisu is how you translate it. So I'll be a weeaboo even with Final Fantasy VII. It's not Aerith, it's Aeris.
That's so yeah. They know who you're talking about, but that's wacky.
If you go back and play the original PlayStation game, they translated it correctly. It's Aeris, which translates to Aerisu. Anyways, Aerith is not technically incorrect, but if you want to be 100% accurate, it's Aeris. But anyways,
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I do think that when Zack walked past Cloud and Aeris, that it was kind of like it could have been a different timeline, or it could have just been an earlier point in their timeline. Because they defeated the Whispers and the Whispers were kind of taken out, Zack then, instead of dying at that point, survives. And, before... if in that same timeline that Cloud and Aeris are in, before Cloud and Aeris met, Zack's actually alive in that same timeline, just earlier in that timeline. So I don't even know how that's going to work. Maybe... Because they walk straight past each other, but it seemed like they were in the same timeline, but they were just at different points in that same timeline or in that same universe. So that's a really interesting key point. Those are the sorts of things, the decisions they make that make the second part far more intriguing to me than whether it's going to be open world or not. It's going to be the story changes that will make it far more intriguing, because at the end of the day, no matter what they change with this game, it doesn't ruin the original. Like, you can't...
I think it might make it better, because I think that the new fans are going to have to go back and play the original to see the original timeline.
Exactly, and for those of you that even have a moderate laptop, definitely download the Seventh Heaven mod and play it on PC with the Seventh Heaven mod, because the Seventh Heaven mod can make the game look amazing. You can render the backdrops at 1080p. It uses smart AI.
It looks like a newer game. It
uses smart AI to fill in the backgrounds. It looks fantastic. So the backgrounds look high res, and all the character models look high res, like Final Fantasy VIII Remastered. So you definitely do that if you have a PC.
And we should also tell them that the game is $10. It's not even expensive.
Oh,
it's super cheap, and it's worth it. You will get many hours out of that game. So I think that we're gonna, whether it's open or not, we're gonna see some iconic stuff. We're gonna see the Nibelheim stuff probably, and the story of Zack will be fleshed out more. I think we're gonna see things like maybe the Temple of the Ancients, because that's just a legendary part of the game. I think I don't know if they're going to institute chocobo breeding and things like that in the second game. They could, they might not. It's not too important. But what I think is going to be interesting is, like you said, Zack, because there's a lot of fans, including myself, who think that at some point Zack might actually become playable, which is something that they haven't done in Final Fantasy VII, the original, obviously. And it would be interesting if you had, like, Zack missions, or if Zack, being that he might be alive now, might actually join your party. Because I feel like if that's the case, then the big confrontation with Sephiroth at the end of the game is going to be very different with Zack being alive.
Yeah, look, there are certain key points of the game that I hope they keep intact, and if they want to change them at a later point, then albeit. Like, for example, Aeris dying, spoiler alert,
right.
Aeris dying, at the end of Disc 1 is something that I think, even if this is a new timeline, they need to keep that intact, because that is one of the biggest emotional points of any video game in history, in my opinion, especially JRPGs. So taking that out of even a remake, even if it's more of a reboot, is a mistake to me. It basically helps develop Cloud's character towards the middle third of the game, and it kind of strengthens his resolve as well. Like, he mourns over it for a long time, as you see in Advent Children, but he kind of has a renewed purpose when Aeris dies, because not only does he want to save the planet, because he understands what Aeris's cause was truly, like, she's the last of the ancients. He kind of wants to not just avenge her, but he wants to save the planet, and he wants to, I would say avenge Aerith's death. It gives him a new resolve at that point in the game, and the other point of the game where he gets a new resolve is where he finally accepts that the memories of Nibelheim were not his from Zack's perspective. He was actually just a soldier standing there with Sephiroth. He wasn't actually soldier first class. All those points of the game. It's just one of his character building moments. And I feel like Aerith's death is important to Cloud's character building, and you can't take that out of this game because that would change Cloud's character in this timeline.
Well, that's fair. And also I feel like with what you just said, with Zack being alive and all, one of the important things about him finding out that his memories, Zack kind of imprinted his memories onto Cloud in a way, is that it's sort of the whole theme of that in the original game was that you are who you want to be. You don't have to be anything but what you want to be. You have the choice, and that's the theme that's recurring in the game multiple times, is that it's all about choice. Cloud chooses at that point to be a hero. He could have just, because he gets depressed for a while, the whole wheelchair stuff, but he chooses to be a hero. And same thing with Barrett. Originally this whole thing was about taking out Midgard because they're a corrupt company. But
Shinra, you mean, not Midgar.
Shinra and Midgar. I'm sorry, Shinra and Midgar. Yes, Shinra and Midgar. And then it becomes this gigantic "let's save the world" thing. And I feel like, I agree that some of that has to be intact. However, based on fan service, I think that if Aerith dies, they could do a thing where she might still die, but then come back at the end. Because I feel like some fans want the Zack and Aerith happy ending. Where they end up together.
I get what you're saying. That somewhat happens in Advent Children. When they, it's kind of like when they move on to the live stream that Zack and Aerith find each other because of they
reunite.
Yeah, what you see in Advent Children. Now, I definitely think you have to take what happens in Advent Children into consideration too. So I wouldn't discount.
Well, you have to, because I think that that's part of the canon. I think that the Sephiroth and Advent Children somehow found a way, and hopefully they'll reveal it in this game, in part 2. He found a way to go to a different timeline to keep his evil growing and going. So let me ask you a question: How? Okay, before we go there, what do you think they're gonna do with Yuffie and Vincent? Because I feel like we are gonna go to Wutai. I think we're probably gonna have some story stuff there, some new story stuff. Some fans think they're not going to put them in. I think that they're too popular. I think Yuffie and Vincent will be in the sequel. What do you think?
I don't mean to sound offensive, but I think it would be ignorant to think that Yuffie and Vincent aren't going to be in the game. They're vital characters in multiple ways.
They're optional in the original, though.
Yeah, they're optional, but they're also vital to the story if you want the full story. So they should be in the game, and I can guarantee you that they will be. You can quote me in this video as saying that they will be, because Vincent was, very close to Sephiroth's mother, Lucrezia. He cared for her. He actually loved her, but when, she chose to be with Hojo instead, it devastated him. But he always loved...
They could really flesh that backstory out even more.
Exactly. Vincent always loved Lucrezia, and Lucrezia is a big part of Sephiroth's story. With Sephiroth being injected with Genova cells while he was in the womb, that's stuff that they can't take out of the story because Vincent's integral to that. Sure, you might change it, but you can't change it. To me, you can't change a character's backstory if they're in the game, which makes Dirge Cerberus canon, it makes Advent Children canon, the original, all that stuff. That's what I mean. And Yuffie in particular as well. Yuffie, I guess, less so than Vincent, but Yuffie is still from Wutai, and Wutai itself is a massive part of Final Fantasy VII's lore, because the whole Wutai war versus Shinra, that's where Sephiroth basically became a war hero for Shinra. Yuffie is from that town, and she represents that town. She might be a materia thief, and she might be a bit of a pain in the ass to deal with sometimes, but she's also,
But she's a character.
Yeah, she represents part of the game and part of the story's background. And the whole going to Wutai, I don't think is also going to be optional, because Wutai, again, is a massive part of the game's history. So
right.
I mean,
they're at war with Midgard.
And I can point blank tell you even Crisis Core is included, because if you look back at Crisis Core, you go into the first, as soon as you come into the Sector 7 reactor at the start of Final Fantasy VII Remake, if you look to the right, there's posters on the wall that say Benora Light or something. It's advertising like a mango. I can't remember what Benora... someone can correct me in the comment section.
That's right.
Benora was known for fruit or something, and there's a poster on the wall advertising a drink with that fruit in it, and it's called Benora something, and that's Angeal's hometown, so, that's in the remake. So all the tie-in games like Dirge of Cerberus, Advent Children, the content from the original storyline like Vincent and Yuffie,
it's almost like the ultimate Final Fantasy VII like love fest.
Yeah,
right?
It all ties into this game, and there is no way that I would accept it any other way. Like there's no argument someone could come up with to tell me that Yuffie and Vincent won't be in this game.
Okay, well then let me ask you this then. There's going to be changes. What changes are you expecting with the story? Like, what do you expect to change in this version?
I do think that maybe Aeris will come back at the end of the game. I think that's a possibility because it's kind of being foreshadowed already. I think that they'll obviously change the way when they go to the Mako reactor at Nibelheim, if they show the flashback where Cloud explains how he met Sephiroth, even though he met Sephiroth as one of the regular Shinra infantry troops.
When he fell into the live stream?
Yeah, you're talking about when Cloud lifted Sephiroth's sword up and threw Sephiroth into the Mako reactor
Mako reactor.
Yeah. I think that'll be in there, but Genesis from Crisis Core was in that part of the game. So Genesis was, for those of you that don't know, was someone who was experimented on the similar way to Sephiroth was, but with outside of the womb. So he was injected with I think Genova cells outside of the womb, so the Angeal and himself would deteriorate over time, whereas Sephiroth didn't deteriorate; he stays like the same. So Angeal, I think that was called the Project G or the G Project. He was a massive part of the story, and he shows up at the Nibelheim reactor in Crisis Core. So I think he will be.
He'll be there in this version.
I guarantee. I can almost guarantee you who will be. They're tying all this in together, and the only way he won't be is because this is a new timeline.
Right.
That's how they.
But he might make a cameo somewhere else.
Yeah, he'll make a cameo in a flashback. So I think the part where you go to the Nibelheim reactor with Sephiroth in the flashback, if they do the flashback, I assume they would have to because it's backstory. But if they don't,
they would have to for the new fans.
If they don't, I reckon when you go to Nibelheim with Cloud and the party in this game, at some stage they will there will be a scene with like a flashback with Genesis or a file, like in Resident Evil 2 remake, you can in the original, hey, you can find files around the place. You'll find a file about Genesis, like all that sort of stuff. So I expect Genesis to be in this game to some capacity. Angeal may even be in the game. Like you just do not know the way this is going to go. So
well, let me ask you this then: what moment from the original are you most looking forward to seeing it with the new graphics? Like, is there any specific moment or a cut scene or fight that you're looking forward to seeing that we haven't seen yet?
I think, like everyone, I'm amped up for the weapon fights. Like, they're not going to take Diamond, Ruby, and Emerald.
We might get new weapons, bro. They might just invent new ones for this game.
I reckon Omega Weapon, like from Dirge of Cerberus, was pretty cool. If they could find a way to work Omega Weapon from Dirge of Cerberus into the game, that'd be pretty cool.
He's also in Final Fantasy VIII, Omega Weapon.
Yes, but completely different story there.
Yeah, it's different, yeah.
I do think that the parts I look forward to will definitely be Aeris' death because it resonates with me at such an emotional level. Like, just thinking about because Cloud, regardless of what anyone says, Cloud fell in love with Aeris, had feelings for her at the very least.
We all did, brother. Yeah. We all did.
So when she dies, you kind of feel Cloud's pain because he kind of connected with her because she just accepted. She's kind of not like Tifa. Tifa kind of forces Cloud to be more of an extrovert and, wants him to be like he was when he was a kid. But Aeris just kind of accepts Cloud for who he is and likes to have a joke and a laugh with him. And I feel like they've got
what about
they've got really good chemistry.
What about the Golden Saucer, bro? It's going to be interesting what they're going to do with that. That's a very big area.
Yeah. Well, the Golden Saucer, I think, will be kind of similar to Midgar. It'll be a really large portion of the game. Maybe not the same size as Midgar, obviously, because it's not as big as Midgar, but I think it'll be a large...
Lots of side quests and minigames.
Absolutely. Right. I think Nibelheim will be a pretty prime location. There's a lot of places that have to be in the game. You can't cut them from the game.
Temple of the Ancients, the Crater, of course.
Yeah, the Forgotten Capital where Aeris will die. Like, those places have to be in the game. The part I'm looking forward to the most is obviously Aeris' death because that just hits me hard, and I think it hits a lot of people hard. To see that remade in current graphical standards would be incredible.
I can't wait to see the Emerald weapon when they first that scene where they first get unleashed on the world to protect the world or whatever. That's what else too. the different summons, because we saw they look awesome in 7 Remake, but like Hades and Rama, God, maybe this other upgrades of Bahamut, and of course if we get Knights, I feel like they have to do Knights of the Round because Knights of the Round is so iconic with and Phoenix is so iconic with Final Fantasy VII.
Well, we've already seen Bahamut in Midgar. You can unlock.
No, I'm talking about the Bahamut upgrades.
Bahamut, Neo Bahamut, and Zero,
yeah.
I mean, that's what I mean. Like how you get them may be different. Like the way you unlock them may vary. But
right.
Yeah, I think places
Chadley.
Chadley. I think he's a pretty funny character.
Chadley.
I could spoil. I may as well because it's a spoiler video. Chadley, was a really interesting character for me because I found, you find out that he's actually he kind of works for Hojo in a way.
Right.
So
he might have a bigger role in the remake.
Yeah, you find that out once you do every single one of his tasks and you basically platinum the game. Like you don't have to platinum the game to find out, but once you do every single one of his tasks, you find out that he's been working for Hojo the whole time, but he kind of doesn't agree with some of Hojo's methods and stuff like that.
Also, what about Red 13's backstory? That's another highlight of the original.
Look, like I said,
flesh it out.
Like I said, Nibelheim, Rocket Town, Temple of the Ancients, Forgotten City, Cosmo Canyon. There's going to be a lot of locations in this game they can't cut, which is why I think they're Wutai as well, in my opinion. There's going to be a lot of...
Well, what about the Midgar Zalem?
Well, that's actually... I'm really looking forward to that. One of the most iconic pre-rendered backgrounds I love to see in the original to this day is when you get across the marshes for the first time. And I'm a freak at the original. I can just sit there and grind for hours. So by the time I get up to the Midgar Zolom, I'm usually level 30 anyway, so I can just actually kill the Midgar Zolom. But it doesn't matter because there's multiple of them in the marshes anyway. But when you get across the marshes for the first time, it has that cutscene with the Midgar Zolom like kind of impaled by the tree, and you see kind of just a glimpse of how powerful Sephiroth is because they're like, oh, Sephiroth must have done this. Fun fact for you.
But he might go on a totally different path. It's a different Sephiroth this time, though. He might do something totally different.
Well, that's another change I find really interesting about this version of the game. It's a fact that in the original, you weren't actually following Sephiroth for the first third of the game or even half of the game because Jenova was taking Sephiroth's form and walking around in Sephiroth's form. So in the Shinra building, when President Shinra gets killed, Sephiroth wasn't actually there in the original.
Yeah, the real Sephiroth was actually in the crater.
He was in the North Crater stuck in the live stream, and it's not until Cloud,
the Black Materia,
hands Sephiroth the Black Materia that Sephiroth actually comes back to life for real. He's not actually alive. So to that point of the game, Sephiroth's not actually alive. He is in stasis in the live stream, you could say. So
but in this story, we might have multiple Sephiroths.
I think Sephiroth's actually there in this one. Like Sephiroth in the Shinra building, I think he was actually there. Like Jenova was there with him, obviously, because you fight the Dreamweaver form of Jenova. But I think Sephiroth was actually in the Shinra building, and I think because this is a different Sephiroth, and the previous games have already happened, this is a Sephiroth that is far more powerful than the original game. This is a Sephiroth that can kind of defy the whispers. He can completely just go nope and ignore them.
Not just that, Jay, but this is the worst part. He's a Sephiroth that's already been defeated by Cloud and the group in the past. Yeah. So he might do... This is what gets me the most excited. Everything we're talking about might not happen at all. Because he might go a totally different direction. We might start the game in Wutai. We might start the game in Temple of the Ancients. Like, he could go in a completely different direction. They might introduce more materia besides the black materia. He might actually be able to cast... You might actually get the wet materia and cast Holy in the game, like which you can do in other Final Fantasy games. Like, I feel like there are so many different things that they could change now because he knows he lost, so he can't make the same mistakes again.
I completely agree with you there, but I just find it fascinating that in the original, Jenova was taking his form and walking around till about the halfway point of the game, whereas in this one, he's actually walking around. Like when you see him in the alleyway at the start of the game after you blow up the first reactor, you think he's not actually there. You're like, oh, Cloud's just hallucinating.
No, I thought that was Cloud's brain.
But after you finish the game, you kind of go back and think he might have actually been there in that alleyway. It kind of fucks with you. It fucks with your head a little bit, and I like that. But I definitely think I agree with you. It's going to go different points in the game. I mean, I don't even, to be real with you, I don't even understand how the original Sephiroth lost, because if you go back and play that boss fight, he casts an attack called Supernova. Now, Supernova wipes out the entire universe, basically. So
it's wacky, bro. It's wacky.
If this guy's a god and he can summon a fucking Supernova, how the hell you beat him in the first place, So,
it's wacky, and the funniest part about it is they even do that much damage.
No.
Like, and I also hope that the final boss is a lot harder than Seraph Sephiroth was supposed to be.
Yeah, definitely.
I hope so.
I think the one-winged angel version, the actual god form of Sephiroth, was the most iconic.
Right, well, they're gonna bring that back. Maybe he has another form. Maybe he has an even more powerful form now.
He could do, yeah. But
the Japanese love their forms, bro.
Yes. I think what would be more fascinating, what they should do at the end of the game in the original, when you fight Genova Absolute in the North Crater and you beat her, and then you go on to Sephiroth.
I thought it was called Genova Synthesis.
It could have been. I thought it was called Genova. It probably is Genova Synthesis. I think Genova Absolute was the name of the music track that plays during that fight. Sorry. Yeah, that one.
Dude,
that's the original. That's the original Genova track. There's also a Genova track called Genova Absolute, and that's what plays when you fight her in the Northern Crater.
Right. But still, I love that song. When I heard it in 7 Remake, I popped, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It was awesome.
I think what would be a great route for them to go in this, if you do end up fighting Sephiroth in the Northern Crater at the end of the game, instead of Sephiroth taking different forms, maybe Sephiroth should integrate or fuse with Genova, and that's how he creates these different forms using the black material.
Mutant.
Yeah, because that would make it kind of doesn't make it's a video game. Not a lot of things make sense.
Or maybe what if he fuses with Zack, bro?
That's wacky, dude.
That's wacky.
That's really
all right. Well, before we close out, any other thoughts you might have on this sequel? What are you hoping for? I mean, I'm hoping for it to be as good as the first one. And I think it will be if they focus. But I'm not gonna lie, Jay. I'm a little bit worried that they're gonna fuck it up. There is obviously that chance they could.
There's always that possibility. But like I said earlier in the video, you can't shit on the original with this game. So nothing you do.
No, you can't.
I cannot stand when people say, "Oh, this ruins the legacy of the original." I was like, "How?" You explain to me how it ruins the legacy of the original.
Not even close.
You can't even
nothing can ruin Nothing can ruin the legacy of something great.
No, exactly. It's like the first two, and I don't want to go on a tangent. I'll just use it as an example. The first two Terminator movies. Every Terminator movie since T1 and T2 has been crap. You can't shit on the original.
Dragon Ball Super cannot ruin Dragon Ball Z.
Exactly. It's not possible. So, therefore, just enjoy the product for what it is and be thankful we got something good. I'm not trying to say, if they do something bad in the story that's terrible, that you can't, criticize them for it. Not at all, because, I definitely think anyone's open to criticism. I'm just saying we should definitely be thankful they finally got around to doing this. The first, 40 hours, 50 hours of the game in Midgar was incredible for me. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So if that's the standard and that's the bar they keep for the rest of the remake, they can change stuff. I don't really care, because it doesn't change. It does not change the original.
More epic boss fights too. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. All right, well, thank you so much, Jay, for being here and talking Final Fantasy VII with me. I really hope that at some point you do start uploading more Final Fantasy VII videos. So you definitely have a lot of passion for this game.
Yeah, it's probably the one thing in life that I actually prefer over Dragon Ball, Final Fantasy VII, because it was a game as a kid and a story as a kid, when I was 9, 10 years old.
And for me, it's Dragon Quest, so JRPGs are edging out Dragon Ball.
Exactly.
Square Enix.
It's just a point, and I'm sure everyone can relate to this. If you think back to your childhood, for me it was 8, 9, 10 when this game came out. I can't remember exactly. I'm 31 this year, so you do the math.
Roughly,
you have a point in your life where you have a memory from your childhood that is so fond and you hold it so dearly that, even though you live in the present, you always go back to that and you look back on those fond memories, and it helps keep you going inside. And that's what this game is for me a lot of the time, When I go back and play this game, I'm talking about the original, and, I hope that the remake becomes this for me as well. It's a game that it takes you to a place where you forget about all your troubles in life. And that's why I love this story so much, because it just resonates with me in so many different ways.
Thank you for being here, and thanks everybody. Check out Jay. Do you want to plug anything at all?
I may start uploading again soon, guys. I know I've said that a couple of times when I've been on Danny's videos recently on Geekdom 101, the other channel. But I recently lost my job, so due to COVID-19, I got made redundant. We call it here in Australia. So. I have a bit more time up my sleeve, so I might take a bit of time to self-reflect, think about what I want to do, and, maybe I'll, start uploading videos. I think it would be a good idea to rebrand under a new banner and a new channel, and I'll probably do that soon, hopefully.
Well, if you do, let me know, and I will let the people know for sure in the community tab here. So thank you again, and let us know in the comments what you're looking forward to in Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2. What you think they may change, where you think the story's going to go, because that's the most exciting part is we don't know, and that's the best part. Thank you, and we'll talk to you soon.